On September 6, 2024, Sony took the servers offline. Every purchase refunded. The game had been live for 14 days. 2 months later, the studio that built it was closed. 174 developers lost their jobs. Total revenue to Sony from the game, zero. Sony had spent 8 years on the project. Over $200 million in initial development alone. Estimated total spend, including studio acquisition and marketing, closer to $400 million. The most expensive product in modern entertainment to never exist. If you're here from the short, this is how $200 million became zero. The bigger story is the strategy Sony quietly walked away from. The game was called Concord. It was a 5 versus 5 first-person hero shooter built by Firewalk Studios in Issaquah, Washington. Firewalk Studios was a spin-out of a larger company called ProbablyMonsters, founded by Ryan, the former president of Bungie, the studio behind Halo and Destiny. ProbablyMonsters operated as a portfolio of game studios, each working on a separate ambitious project. Firewalk was the hero shooter team. The Firewalk team was made up of veterans of Halo, Destiny, and Call of Duty. The hero shooter genre they were building into was, at the time of Firewalk's founding in 2018, one of the most commercially successful and most played genres in video games. In April 2023, Sony Interactive Entertainment acquired Firewalk Studios outright. Concord became a first-party Sony title. Sony's bet on the live service video game category, at the time, was strategic. Sony had publicly committed to launching 12 live service titles by fiscal year 2026 as part of broadening beyond the single-player narrative franchises, Spider-Man, The Last of Us, Horizon, God of War, that had been the company's signature. Concord was the flagship of that strategy. The business model was straightforward. Sell the game at $40 per copy on PlayStation 5 and Steam. Drive recurring revenue through a battle pass, seasonal content drops, and microtransactions for character cosmetics. Build a player community over time. There was one structural problem. The hero shooter category in 2024 was dominated by free games. Overwatch 2, Valorant, Apex Legends, Marvel Rivals would launch 4 months later. 25 million monthly active users, 30 million, 70 million, free. Concord cost $40. The first public Concord beta ran in May 2024. Concurrent player counts during the beta were well below comparable hero shooter launches. Internal warnings about beta engagement reportedly reached the development team, but did not change the launch trajectory. The open beta in July 2024 showed the same pattern. Sony proceeded to launch. On August 23, 2024, Concord went live on PlayStation 5 and Steam. Reviews were mixed to mediocre. The character designs were criticized as visually generic. The gameplay loop was described as competent but unremarkable in a category where the competition was free. The Steam concurrent player count at launch peaked at fewer than 700 players. For context, the hero shooter Helldivers 2, also published by Sony, also launched in 2024, peaked at 458,000 concurrent on Steam. Marvel Rivals would launch 4 months after Concord and peak at 444,000 concurrent on Steam in its first week. Concord peaked at fewer than 700. Within 4 days of launch, the Steam concurrent player count had fallen below 200. The PlayStation 5 numbers were not publicly disclosed by Sony, but industry reporting indicated the platform's concurrent count was similarly thin. Internal engagement metrics, Season 1 Battle Pass enrollment, and microtransaction revenue all came in materially below Sony's projections. By the end of August 2024, Sony was already deliberating shutdown. On September 3, 2024, Sony posted an important update on Concord on the PlayStation blog. The game director, Ryan Ellis, announced that the servers would be taken offline 3 days later and that every purchase would be refunded. Ellis used the phrasing that has since become an industry quote. While many of the game's mechanics had struck a chord with players, other aspects of the launch had not landed. On September 6, 2024, Concord servers went offline. The game was delisted from the PlayStation Store and from Steam. Every purchase was refunded. The total live operation window of Concord was 14 days. The total net revenue to Sony from Concord operations was approximately zero. The 8-year development project that had cost over $200 million in initial development alone, plus the Firewalk Studios acquisition, plus the marketing campaign. Total estimated Sony spend on the property closer to $400 million had generated no revenue at all. The studio was about to be closed. On October 29, 2024, Sony Interactive Entertainment announced the closure of Firewalk Studios. Sony's then co-CEO of PlayStation Studios, Herman Hulst, defended the decision publicly. Quote, "The right decision for players, the team, and the business." The Firewalk Studios layoffs began executing on November 1st, 2024. 174 Firewalk employees lost their jobs. A sister studio, Neon Koi, was also closed in the same wave. Combined Firewalk plus Neon Koi layoffs, 210 people. The Concord property was effectively erased. The game has not been re-released. Firewalk Studios no longer exists. The studio's intellectual property remains owned by Sony, but has not been licensed, sold, or revived. The broader Sony live service strategy contracted in the aftermath. The Last of Us Online project, Naughty Dog's separate live service game, had been canceled the year before, but the Concord closure reinforced Sony's strategic retreat. A Naughty Dog second live service title and a planned God of War live service spin-off were both deprioritized through late 2024 and 2025. Sony's publicly stated 2022 commitment to launch 12 live service titles by fiscal year 2026 was quietly walked back. The actual delivered live service slate post-Concord is materially smaller than the original ambition. Marvel Rivals from NetEase. Launched 4 months after Concord, free-to-play, immediately captured the hero shooter audience Concord had targeted. Became the canonical proof that hero shooter demand existed. Concord's problem was specifically Concord. Jim Ryan, the Sony CEO who had approved the Firewalk acquisition, had retired earlier in 2024. He was not personally present for the consequences. Sony spent over $200 million on Concord development, over $400 million when all costs are included. It earned $0 in net revenue. It was live for 14 days. 174 developers lost their jobs. The most expensive product in modern entertainment to never exist. The game charged $40 to enter a market where the competition was free.